Okay, YouTubers, this is Joe from ArtAlienTV. Excuse my voice today, I do have the flu. Had it for about a week now. I'm getting over it, so let's crack on. Here we have today an image that was basically posted on Facebook group Martian Genesis a while ago, and it totally caught my imagination. I thought, wow, that's really cool. And this is the raw image here. This is the image from the JPL website, or NASA, the official image, and it's really a grungy, horrible, mucky, downgraded piece of crap that they've given us here. It really is one of the worst Mars images I've ever looked at in my entire life. And you will understand why in a minute. I'll show you very quickly in here. It's been downgraded. It has the nasty orange filter over it, which they put over everything to hide shadow and detail and definition and everything else. And basically, you've got this ridge line, and we're looking up at it, and the sun's casting a shadow from this sort of direction. So the shadows are sort of not huge. But when you get in close to this image, it's been so downgraded. It's been absolutely torn to pieces. There's very little detail here that's intact. There is some, but it really is one of the most downgraded Mars images from the Curiosity I've ever seen. It's absolutely terrible. Now, this is from Sol 796, and there will be a link below for this one. But you're probably better off with this to actually view the Gigapan instead, because the Gigapan has already been cleaned up pretty well by Neville Thompson here. Credit to him, as usual. MSL 796. And here is the thing we're looking at, okay? We have what looks a little bit like a person crouched on top of this rock, looking down at the rover from the ridgeline. Now, this is tiny, okay? I would say, if this is what I think it is, and it may not be, of course, this is really only an inch or two across. So this is really small, okay? And when you zoom in, it doesn't get much more detail than it has here, but you can see two eyes, a nose and a mouth and a head, and what looks like an arm here and a hand just here, and a possible another arm just there. I don't know if you can make that out. But yeah, I mean, you can even see here, even though Neville Thompson does this professionally, does it as his main job, he's managed to clean this image up, but it's still pretty grungy and choppy here. There's bits of it are broken up a bit here, but there is just enough detail to determine that there is something on this rock that looks like a person looking at the rover. Now, is it possible that there are people on Mars that are only 6 inches tall? Is that possible? I don't see why not. Especially when you have some on Earth, like the Atacama humanoid and the various other little specimens have been found in the Atacama Desert in Chile and places like that, of humanoids that were literally only 6 or 8 inches tall. Okay, now, is it possible that they were on Mars as well? It could be. I'm not saying there was. This image is not proof. It is evidence. Proof is when you have lots of evidence leaning in one direction, and I do have a bit of other evidence that there may be small people on Mars. But it's inconclusive, because there's not enough of it. And it's also not clear enough, some of it. So, before we go any further, I'm going to show you some clips. Now, let's give full credit here to Martine Grainey before we go any further. Here's her original post on Martian Genesis. And this is really good. And she's really cleaned up the image, really brightened it up here. You can see it's from the Gigapan. She's taken that. And she's got the original image here showing where to look, which is cool. This was posted back in December last year. December the 5th. It may have been posted a bit earlier than that before, but that's the first time I saw it. So that's probably around the first time it was published. So this date here, the 2nd of 11th, 2014, is not the date of this publication. It's the date that the image was published. This image here was published by NASA. Okay, so there we have it, and a great job she's done here yet again. Not only she found something which looks really interesting, but she's done a really nice insert here, like a really nice kind of enhancement here, so you can see some detail. And what can I say? It looks like a little alien person. There we have it. Let me show you my enhancements, which are not as good. I haven't gone quite so far. I've probably not brightened it as much, but there we go. I'm going to show you the raw image first. And it really is terrible. But you can see it's there. You can just about make it out. Eyes, nose, mouth, head, arm here. But it really is terribly grungy. And so I took a little clip here, then I enlarged it and brightened it up, and again, went back again. I did a few clips of it here, and then I stuck it to the original image, a clip of the original image here, side by side, so you can compare. And then I basically did a composite, much like Martine's, not as good, but similar. There we go. There's the composite image. There's the enhanced clip. Now that took a bit of work because obviously the image is pretty bad. So I've kind of blur it a bit and then really brighten it up. And you can actually see some nose detail here. 2 eyes, a mouth and a chin. And something on top like a hat or something. Or not really sure what that is. The arm coming around here. There's not a lot of detail here at all. I appreciate that, but there is just enough for it to be interesting. And is it or isn't it? Now, it did occur to me that this may not be a person at all. This may be a lizard or some kind of reptile. It's the right sort of size for a small reptile. And the features aren't particularly human. When you get in close, they're kind of human, but they're kind of not. And what it did remind me of is something that I published about a year or so ago called the 1-inch alien. Now, this was in all the press. I got this in the newspapers back in 2016, so it was a couple of years back now. Well, it's not really. It's actually just over a year because it's the end of 2016. But basically, I sent this to the press, and it was in all the newspapers, and it went viral for about a week. And they all went a bit crazy over it, and everyone called me a complete nutcase for even suggesting there might be lizards on a barren, dry, desert-like planet. I mean, would you ever think of that? I mean, would you ever think that there might be lizards on a barren, desert-like planet? Oh, how outrageous that thought must be to some people. But basically, this was what looks like a small lizard that's been turned into a mud fossil, which is basically where the mud and clay is settled on something in the water, like in the lake bed here, and then it's dried out very quickly and rapidly and hardened and baked like a small statue almost. That's what it looks like. I'm going to play a little bit of that for you now, just to show what it looks like. And this is very similar in the scale. This is literally about 1 inch, maybe 2. But this is about 1 inch from here to here, roughly. Don't know exactly. There's no scale reference for this image or the other one. But there's some pretty good detail in here, and it does look kind of similar to me, with these kind of little horn things sticking up. If you look carefully, this looks like an eye and a beak. And there are 2 kind of white things sticking up from the head. And this looks like a neck. And this is a possible shell here. Like a turtle. Or tortoise, whatever you want to call them. And it does seem to have some interesting detail on top, like 2 little horns. Now, when you look at this thing, there's something sticking up as well. Now, it may not be a horn. This may actually be just a reflection from the rock behind or something. There may be something just behind it that's a bit bright, and it's interfering in the image. The image quality is fairly poor and damaged, so you can't take all the details as being necessarily real. You've got to sort of think, well, maybe we're seeing a bit of distortion here. Okay, but it's in the gigaplan as well. There's those things sticking up. So I don't know if that's related at all. I don't know. Just making a comparison there. There was also this guy. Now, this was sent in to me a few years ago now. This was initially published back in 2013. I think I published it a few times, and it didn't get a great deal of views. This is called Mars Alien Figure Caught Behind Rock by Rover. Yes. Now, this to me actually looks like a person. And it's not only a couple of inches tall. This is more like somewhere between 7 and 12 inches. I'm not sure. I really don't know exactly. Let me play that through a little bit for you, because this is weird. And I still think this is a really good find. And I think this was sent in by a guy called Conti Laity. Let's pause it a minute. Let's make sure he gets the credit. It should say in the description who this was sent by. It would be in here somewhere. So, yeah, I'll put a credit to that in a minute at the end of the video, once I've found it. And this basically is what looks like a person stood behind a rock or doing something. I'm not going to say what he's doing, assuming it's a he. Okay? But it looks like someone taking a leak, let's say, just to be polite, behind a rock. And if you look carefully, you've got an arm, you've got a shoulder there, and another shoulder here. The torso, this dark bit, and you've got like a little chin sticking out of what looks like a big kind of hat. Okay? Very strange indeed. Now, it may not be, of course. This may actually be something else. This may be a statue or statuette that just happens to be standing behind a rock just here, which is rather odd. But I still think this may actually be a Martian. And even in the raw image here, you can see that there's a line going down the middle. Now that looks to be like a zip or something on a jacket. This is like a little leather jacket with a zip down the front. I don't know if it gets much closer than that. If you get in too close to it, of course, it just blurs. So that's worth checking out. So there are other examples of small possible Martians, this being one of them, and the 1-inch alien being the other. This one I think is better because you've actually got some face detail here and morphology. If this is a fossilized lizard, a mud fossil lizard, it could well be. Is it going to play? There we go. It doesn't get any clearer than that, really, because it's very small. But luckily this one was in quite a good quality image and quite clear, so the actual detail wasn't too bad on that. This one is a bit further away. This is about 10, 11 feet away from the rover, so possibly more, possibly 15, and is literally, this guy is probably only about 7 or 8 inches tall, possibly a foot, but not much taller than that. So that kind of puts us in the same sort of category as the little people that have been found in the Atacama Desert. Now, it just so happens that the Atacama Desert in Chile is the place that is most like the surface of Mars. In other words, it's extremely dry and barren, and there's very little vegetation or water or anything. So it's very, very similar. The conditions are very, very similar indeed to Gale Crater, where we are here. So there we have it. Is it a little Martian? Let's go back to the folder. Let's have another look at that. Is it some kind of lizard? Is it just a rock that kind of looks like something? Could well be. But we are seeing a pattern forming here, and this is what I like to try and do with my videos. I like to try and put things together and make some kind of comparisons and try and work out what we're dealing with here. Are we dealing with something that's real? Are we dealing with something that's just an optical rock illusion, like many of these things are, like the giant mouse, as I said it was? I really do think a lot of them are optical illusions, but I do think a lot of them aren't. And I think this may fall into the latter of those two. I think this may be a genuine creature or tiny Martian. There are lots of other examples of very small things on Mars, and this may be yet one more. So, great job by Martine Grainey, as usual. She really is one of the best researchers out there. She finds some crazy stuff, and I'm constantly amazed with some of her finds, and I may be touching on one or two more in the near future. What can I say? It looks like a tiny Martian, or a little Mars person, I should say. Who knows? Could it be? Could it be? Maybe. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you soon.